waiting to do something until you feel ready, or only wanting to be seen when everything is perfect, are ways that women of color sneakily shrink ourselves. They're generational programming and generational patterns that we must break. This is why a few months ago I decided I would make my MFA thesis film in Mexico and that it would be entirely in Spanish, even though I've never shot anything abroad and I don't feel confident in my Spanish right now. I arrived in southern Mexico last week. I'm in my parents' hometown village for a few weeks to figure out my story, location scout, and see family. But almost immediately, I realized that making a film in Spanish wasn't actually the scary part. Speaking Spanish was. Last week, a few days before leaving for Mexico, I was meeting my friend's cousin. My friend is Latina like me, by the way. Her cousin spoke to me in Spanish. Though I am fluent in Spanish, I froze. I have an accent when I speak Spanish and don't have that much practice since English is the main language we speak in America. But Spanish was the first language that I learned. I spoke it at home with my family when I was a little kid. Then, when I started going to school, my Spanish slowly deteriorated. Anyway, I beat myself up after this interaction with my friend and her cousin, hating that I didn't speak more. I was also overthinking about how I was perceived by them. What if I came off as rude? What if I came off as shy? When in reality, I was petrified. I was scared that they would judge my Spanish or that I would be laughed at or made fun of. I know this is definitely just conditioning or a response to a past experience where maybe I felt like I was being made fun of or judged. So I learned that speaking imperfectly was embarrassing. But if that belief was keeping me small, then waiting until I sounded perfect or good enough wasn't protecting me, it was shrinking me. So I made a pact to myself. On this trip, if I have something to say, I'm going to say it, even if the sentence comes out awkward and clunky, even if people notice my accent. I'd rather be someone who's trying to communicate than someone who's silent and passive. But making that pact led me to another question. Why does taking up space and being seen feel so uncomfortable in the first place? Why is this such a big deal for me and a major lesson I had to learn in this lifetime? I've noticed there are people who move through the world with an assumption that they belong. There are people who go to events, who are outgoing and make friends easily and are not afraid to be the center of attention. I used to be annoyed by these kinds of people, and I had to learn that it's a trait that I haven't given myself permission to have. When we're annoyed by other people or judge others, it's really pointing to something we have to look into ourselves for. And I had to come to terms with the difficult truth that I was the one who was shrinking myself before others even tried to do that for me. As a woman of color and a first generation American navigating the predominantly white space of academia, I feel like my experience has sort of been me trying to fit in and trying to hide. But I've also thought about how much of my smallness was an ingrained idea of being a person of color in America, where our culture was not always accepted or praised. I was having a conversation over breakfast the other day with my parents, and they said that back when they immigrated to New York City in the 90s, there were hardly any Mexican grocery stores or restaurants. Sometimes you'd crave specific Mexican snacks like chicharron. So you had to find community there.
Estamos en las famosas piedras de Cuyustlahuac, Guerrero. Miren la hermosura que está aquí. Miren eso.
You had to find other Mexican people who were in the know and would tell you something like, I know of this truck that stops at this street on Sundays with Mexican food and Mexican goods. Like it was the plug. Like you were trying to secure illegal substances, but really you just wanted to have some of your favorite food from home. My parents said that back then they wished they weren't born Mexican. They were ashamed. I felt that same shame when I was a kid. But now, as one of my parents jokingly put it, everyone wants to be Mexican, meaning that there is more pride now because we are more represented in the US now. There are lots of Mexican restaurants and Mexican grocery stores and an overall sense of pride. So, all of this, being seen and taking up space, it's a generational lesson for me. And it might be a generational lesson for many of us. Deciding to make my thesis film in Spanish and beginning pre production has been challenging. It's forcing me to communicate my creative vision in Spanish. Like when I went location scouting with my cousin Jessie, who will be part of my crew. And when we had a conversation about my thesis film that made me believe for the first time that I can actually make it. Quería asentarme contigo a hablar sobre mi película, que es mi proyecto para mi maestría. Y yo ya te mandé el guión y ya estás como, ya conoces la historia. La historia está basada en hechos reales de la vida de mi abuela materna. Yo estaba inspirada por su historia. Yo quería preguntarte tus opiniones sobre el guión y la historia.
Como ya sabemos, pues casi toda tu vida has estado en Estados Unidos, ¿no? Entonces como que yo dije, bueno, a lo mejor ya leyéndolo, no sé, ya trae otra perspectiva o algo así, pero realmente no traes otra perspectiva, quizá por tu familia, que pues tus papás, ellos se la pasan acá, o los videos que ellos te enseñan, o lo que tú has visto, pues lo que tú plasmaste en el guión, lo que tú escribiste en ese guión, pues realmente es algo que cuando la gente que vivimos aquí pues lo leemos, nos damos cuenta que no es algo que esté alejado de la realidad, que realmente es algo que sí, para nosotros a lo mejor un poco más normal. Entonces eso es algo que me gustó mucho.
Me siento mejor y me siento más segura después de este viaje de 3 semanas que estaba aquí. Y me siento más emocionada a hacer el proyecto. Más segura en mí misma también, porque en hacer algo así en esta historia que es tan personal y es tan delicada en una manera, pero ya como veo cómo se está formando y siento que sí tengo el apoyo de la gente aquí y de mi familia.
Sí. Y aparte, tú dices, es que debo de hacerlo con responsabilidad y a lo mejor puede ser delicado y con respeto, sí, pero no es una historia única, porque así como tu abuela, hay muchas mujeres que tienen que emigrar y muchas mujeres en esta región que se han tenido que ir también así con sus niños. Todos van a decir, ay, mira, se parece a mi historia, o se parece a la historia de mi tía, así le hizo mi abuelita, justo lo que hizo mi mamá, o lo que hizo mi hermana que se acaba de ir con sus niños, ¿no? O sea, sí. Es algo que es una historia al final de cuentas que une a muchas otras historias, o sea, porque el objetivo era el mismo, ¿no? Ir a Estados Unidos, tener una vida mejor. Y como tú dices, en el caso de tu abuela, ¿no? Ella se va y pues gracias a ella las cosas, tanto para tu mamá como para sus hermanos, pues han sido un poco diferentes, ¿no? Entonces qué bueno, y probablemente así muchas otras familias. Entonces, también para que no te sientas como con esa presión, porque sí está basada en ella, pero no solo habla de ella, va a representar como a muchas mujeres que también han tomado esa decisión de irse, de buscar una vida mejor y pues dejando absolutamente todo, ¿no?